Hi, I'm Dawn Chase from Creative Appliques. In this video today, we're going to talk about how to assemble and put together this 5-fabric coaster or hot pad set. I will be using my SWF KXT 1501 machine, but don't let that worry you because this process is the same regardless of whether you do it on a single needle flatbed machine or on a multi-needle machine. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. And if you're new, please click that subscribe button, and right next to it, there's a bell. Click on that and you'll be notified when I upload new content. Also, I would be forever grateful if you click that thumbs up like button because that way I know you like my content and you want me to keep sharing more with you. It also lets YouTube know that you like it too. So, if you want to learn how to do this super fast, super simple, super easy project, stay tuned because we're going to get into it now. So this is assembled all in the hoop, and you can use 4 different fabrics. So I used 3 different ones for the top, and then 1 different one for the back, but you could do something like this where you just do 2 different fabrics opposing. Now these are going to be assembled all in the hoop in one hooping. There's not going to be any additional hooping at all, and it's going to finish in the back with an envelope here that you can finish how you wish, hand stitching, or you could get some iron-on adhesive tape that will then close this shut, or you can use some fabric glue, however you choose to finish that back up. So that is the project that we are doing today. So let's talk about the supplies we're going to need today. So this is essentially 5 fabrics, but you will need anywhere from 2 to 3 of the backing, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you'll want to have contrasting fabrics for the front, at least 2 different ones, as shown in this example here, or you can have up to 4, or like I did, 3. And then this will be the back, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So you need your fabrics cut in the squares. Now this design does work with the AccuQuilt cube system. So if you have the cube system, it will work with the following sizes: the 4.5 inch, the 5.5 inch, the 6.5 inch, the 7.5 inch, the 8.5 inch, the 9.5 inch, and the 10.5 inch. That is the raw edged cut size of the fabrics that you will need for each of the different sizes, but you can cut it just with a rotary cutter and a ruler as well. But if you have the cube, you have that option. You'll want some stabilizer. So I like to use a cutaway stabilizer because it adds a little bit of extra firmness to the design, but you can also use a mesh like this. You can also use a tearaway if you wish. You will need some kind of batting, so you can either use batting for the coaster size. I use batting. You can also use something like sew-any shaped foam from Designs in Machine Embroidery and OESD. This is great for adding structure. And if you're using it for like a hot pad or a trivet, like the larger sizes, you can get Insulbright, and this is great for insulating and thermal, so that if you want to use it as a hot pad to put a hot dish on it, this would help as well. But you don't want to stick this in the microwave if you're going to use it in the microwave. Another option that you can use as well is some fusible fleece, and so that is great as well that you can use instead of the batting or the foam. So you will need those. Then you will need a rotary cutter if that's how you're cutting it out, a poker, a chopstick or an awl or something to help you hold the pieces down, some scissors because you will be cutting all of the batting and the pieces, the squares, in the size of the design, but the batting is stitched a little shorter so that it won't be caught in the seams. And I do that on purpose so there's not all that extra bulk in the seams. And some scissors you're going to need for trimming, and then a turner if this is another option for a turner, and then an iron to be able to iron it all nice and flat in the end. And of course your embroidery thread and the design loaded to your machine. Today I'm going to be using my multi-needle KXT 1501 SWF machine, and I'm going to be using the 8x9 MightyHoop, but for the 6.5-inch design that I'll be stitching out today. But this process is the same whether you're using a single needle machine, flatbed, or the multi-needle machine. So that doesn't matter what machine you're using, the process is still going to be the same. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to prep your fabric. So you're going to take all of them, and they're squares. So it doesn't matter which way you fold it. If you have a directional fabric, then you're going to want to fold it in the way that you want it to be laid out for your actual finished product. So you're going to take all of the pieces, the top pieces at least, and you're going to fold them all in half with the raw edges together and the wrong sides together. So it will, since it's a 6.5 inch, it ends up being 3¼ inches this way. So you'll fold 4 of them and press them. Make sure that the edges here are met together, that they're not overhanging. So those are for the 4 top pieces like you see here. For the back pieces, since I did design this for use with the Appliques dye system, I cut the 6.5-inch shape. So what I'm doing here is I'm not putting the edge all the way to the ends. This is for the back piece. So for the back side of the design like this, that's going to be an envelope, you need it to overlap a little bit so you have something to catch it with. So that's why, because they are still cut the same size as the front pieces, you need to have it so that the pieces are a little bit longer. So what I'm doing is I'm not actually folding it all the way. I'm leaving about a good 1/2 inch and pressing it that way. Okay, so 2 pieces you're going to need that are going to be over, one edge is going to extend about a good 1/2 inch. So if you can see that. So both of the back pieces are going to be like that, with that raw edges not meeting up. The front pieces, all the raw edges meet up. There's no extending. But for the 2 back pieces, they are going to be left with about 1/2 inch overhang. And it's right sides together, wrong sides together. All of these pieces are wrong sides together. Now I have an extra piece here, and I just wanted to talk about this for a minute. So the way this is going to be assembled is we're going to stitch the placement line, place the batting down, stitch the batting down, trim it. Then we're going to lay all these 4 pieces down at one time, and then they're going to stitch, and then they're going to do the quilting pattern that is offered. There are 5 or 6 of them offered, and then you will put the back pieces on, and I'll show you. We're going to go through that step by step. However, one thing that you can do if you want, to me, I didn't feel like it was necessary, because once you get the quilting in there and you get these met up really well, you can't see in there. So to me, I didn't need to put it in there. But for this one here, this is the 10-inch one, if you can see in here, I mean, it takes some work to get in there and look, but that's just the batting that's right in there. So if that is an issue and you are worried about that possibly being seen, which it's not when you have the quilting on there, you can put down this on top of your batting or fleece or sewing shape foam before you put these on. So let's get started with stitching the design. I'm going to load the design to the machine, and the first step I'm going to stitch is the placement line for the batting. and I'll be right back. One other thing I also wanted to note is, depending on how much you want the stitching, the quilting to stand out, you may want to choose a contrasting thread. I just wanted to see the beautiful fabric and the structure of the stitching and how it created that lovely design. So I didn't want the stitching to stand out. But if you want the stitching to stand out, then you could use a nice contrasting thread. Like in this one here, I wanted to see the stitching, so I did it in blue. But in all these others, I simply did it in white just so I could just see the beautiful fabric there. So the first step that's stitched was the placement line of where the fabric is going to go. Now I'm going to take my batting and I'm going to stick it on top of this, and you can tape it down if you want. And now I'm going to tack down the batting. This is also where you would either put the Embroidery or the fusible fleece or the sew any shape foam. Now I'm going to stitch the tack down for the batting. There was the tack down for the batting, and now I'm going to trim it. Trimming is an optional step. If you don't want to trim it, you don't have to. I just don't like having all the bulk in the seam. Okay, now we're going to place the fabric. It's important that it's placed down in this exact order so that it does not get caught. The design was specifically digitized so that when it's running over these parts of the design and the fabrics, that the presser foot's not going to get caught. So if you're on a single needle machine and you have the ability to raise your presser foot, you're probably going to want to do that, and you're going to want to sit with the machine, especially when you're doing the quilting, because of the fact that you can get your presser foot sometimes caught under these areas. That's what I use the chopstick for, to be able to hold down the fabrics so that the presser foot doesn't get caught underneath these fabrics. So this is a design that you're definitely going to want to stay with and sit there with it. But literally it stitches up in like 3 minutes. So now to placing the fabrics. So now we have them all prepped, wrong sides together with the fold. The fold is going to go in towards the center for all of them. So I'm going to start with laying this one here, and I'm lining up the edges of the raw edges of the design with the stitching. So it's very important that you have it lined up with the stitching. Oh, one note. If you wanted to put that one piece so that behind all of the pieces there is a piece of fabric, now is the time that you would do that. Okay? But I'm not going to do that. So line up the raw edges with the stitching. So fold is here towards the center. My next piece, fold towards the center, goes right on top. Again, raw edges lining up with the stitching. My next piece, fold towards the center, raw edges by the stitching. And now my last piece, fold towards the center, lay it down. And now what we do is I like to hold this part here, flip this back, use my fingers to hold this one in place, pull this one up, lay that down, and lay this down just like that. So it's very important, as I mentioned earlier, that they're laid down in this orientation so that your presser foot is less likely to get caught. So the next step that's going to stitch is just going to be a square around it to hold all of these in place before going on to the step after that, which will be the quilting. So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch this down. So if you're worried about your presser foot getting caught, and if you cannot raise your presser foot or you're still worried about it, this is the time when you can put on the water-soluble stabilizer. That way it's going to hold all of these pieces down. It's going to have something for your presser foot to slide over and not get caught. So right now I'm going to go and stitch down these next steps. So the next step that's going to stitch is the quilting. For this one today, I'm just doing the hearts, but for the stippling, for the diamonds, for the squares, for all the other ones, you're going to want to stay with the machine and make sure that it is not getting caught, the presser foot's not getting caught under these areas. I did my best to try to make sure that the designs were digitized so that the presser foot is not going to get caught up underneath these, but there's still a possibility if these are not put down really flat and smooth. And as I mentioned earlier, you can also use the water-soluble stabilizer on top to prevent that as well. Now the next thing that we're going to do is put the back pieces on. So we want to have the pieces that the shorter edge is going to be up. So we are taking the raw edge again and having it aligned with the other raw edges and the first placement stitching. So it is important that you put the right side first down with the folds towards the center, and now we're going to take the other piece with the extended raw edge, fold towards the center. I'm going to place it down. Again, raw edges are meeting. So now there is a little bit of an overlap here. It's about a 1/2 inch, okay? So you can take this down if you wish. You can also put some water-soluble stabilizer down. I'm just going to go ahead and use my chopstick like I always do and tack this last part down. This is the back, and we're almost done. All right, it's finished stitching now, and we'll clean it up. So we will remove it from the hoop. And I like to use this trimmer by George. It has this little metal lip here to get under and kind of hold these raw edges, so I could just trim the stabilizer as close as I can without getting anything caught here in the pieces of fabric. This is just another little extra step. You don't have to do this. You could trim the stabilizer flush with the stitching with your scissors, or you can just trim the stabilizer flush with all the rest of the fabric as well. But I like to get as much bulk out of the seam as I possibly can, and so that's why I like to do this. I will leave links down below to most all of the products I've used here, so that if you are wanting them, the links will be there. You can cut the corners on the diagonal, again less bulk. And now this is when we use our two little tools here to get my nails there and kind of push it out from the back. Push it out from the back, or from the inside, I guess I should say. Inside, there we go. And now I like to get into these corners really well. Oh, as a note, I realized that last stitch that tacked these blue down did not go in the reverse direction. Normally it will start stitching here and it will go over to the right and then it will go back around for the squares twice. This one I forgot to do that with, and so when you download the file it will be correct, so you won't have to worry about it going over that part. So that will be corrected. And then I like to just use this a little bit to help get it really flat. And then I'm going to go iron it, and I'll be right back. So I just wanted to point out something. When I was speaking earlier about making sure that the raw edges of the fabric were lined up precisely with the placement stitch that's stitched in the very first step of the design, it's imperative that they are bumped up to all four edges of that square. And the reason being is if they're not, when you go ahead to stitch the tack down, you could potentially not have an edge caught in there. So, you know, this is really not that big of a deal. I can go ahead and fix this or get some glue or something, but this is why you need to be careful that when they're folded, all raw edges meet up and that you have it placed exactly on the lines. So you want to prevent any kind of shifting once you place the fabrics down in the hoop by taping them, covering it with some water-soluble stabilizer, and staying with the machine so that the fabrics don't shift.
These are the different quilting. That's the diagonal, the square, the hearts, the diamonds, the echo, the stippling, and again the square.
Well, there you go. That's how fast and simple and easy this project is. 5 fabrics, 1 piece of batting, some stabilizer, and an embroidery machine. And within 3 minutes, you have a coaster or a hot pad. Such a fun project. So many ways to customize it using fabrics for holidays or team spirit or anything. So let me know in the comments, what did you think of this project? Do you think this is something that you can achieve? Do you think this is something that you would like to do? Also, let me know in the comments what type of videos you want to see. What do you want to know? The only way I can interact with you is in the comments. I read every single one of them and I respond to all of them. So please leave me a comment down below letting me know. Also, I've included all the links below for the products that I used in this video, just so you have that there. So until I see you again, until I upload my next video, please make your life creative.